Go ahead, Jacob. Did you have a comment here to kick off hour 2? Tell the people how you feel.
I did, sir. Actually, that's perfect, Tim. If you could scroll down and just look, I think something that maybe Drew Dahlman brings to the table is look at his run blocking grades for his career. Mm-hmm. Can you scroll down a little bit, Clay, and show that real quick?
Absolutely.
If you look at him, that first year he was in, obviously you said he only had about 68 snaps, so you can't really judge that. But look at that, 92.3. When he was full on, had 1,000+ snaps, he has a 69.5. It doesn't sound great, but that's solid. That's a consistent blocker there. In 2023, the year where he had the second most snaps of his career, 932, he had a 90 grade run blocking. And then last year, or this year, 2024, he had a 79.8. To me, that sounds like the leader of the pack, no pun intended. Like I said, I want to keep this going. I have not remembered in my lifetime, minus maybe like the Amon Green years, where we had just a road grader type offensive line that could also pass block, but when we wanted to run the ball, we could just shove it down your mouth. And for him to be the point of attack on that, and then maybe, like I said, if we could get Dahlman, and even if we wanted to go and find a Castillo or maybe upgrade in the draft, or hopefully Jordan Morgan takes a step and we got Jenkins and maybe Morgan or Jenkins and plug in whoever else at that guard position, I'm pretty confident in those tackles. I mean, I want us to look at what happened this year. We lost because we lost in the trenches, I would argue. We need to build up both sides of that ball. We need to revamp the D-line with guys that are actually going to show up and play. And I think the offensive line just needed to be a little more fine-tuned. We saw what happened that's when Jenkins went out, and then when Myers went out, that offense just stopped. It just did. So I'm excited.
Let's go to the chat here. Fred McFarley says Myers will fetch $10 million per, Dahlman probably $12 million, in my opinion. That could happen. And we showed it doesn't matter what we think they're worth, right? That's why I was saying like $7-8 million. If you can get them for there, I'm on board. If you're saying you got to pay $12 million average annual value of the contract for Dahlman, I get a little hesitant there, because I would rather just kick Elgton over and bang your contract. The structure of the contracts in your organization on the balance sheet, to me, would be perfectly in place. Your top paid players would be right tackle, center, and then probably left tackle when you extend Rasheed Walker, if they go that route. So that's what you're looking for when you model your roster. I'm willing to pay no more than 3 offensive linemen, top dollar, like top money, right? It's left tackle, right tackle, and center. I'd prefer left tackle and center and leave right tackle out. Tom's just such a damn good player. You gotta re-sign him. Doesn't matter what position you play. When you play at the level Zach Tom's played at, you gotta extend him. So let's see what else we got here. Prince says Packers did sign a center to futures contract, Trey Hill out of Georgia, round 6, pick 180 by the Bengals. So there you go. They're adding a little depth there. Prince also said hour 2, we need Jacob Beardsickle picks. All right, Jacob. No, all right, ain't gonna happen. It was shrinkage. Fred McFarley says, yep, Hill and Monk are similar prospects. Just need one to emerge. And that's the thing, is like, it's such an important. Are we gonna do this again? This is what we talked about, right, Tim? Like, are we really gonna do this again? We're just gonna settle for a center that's, hey, he's not bad at football. And then you're looking up, you're getting bounced in the first round, in the wild card round, and all these other teams are advancing and they got great center play. Sooner or later, we've got to accept the fact that we've got to improve this team at center. We've got to, man. Like Scott Wells, when they won the Super Bowl, Scott Wells was solid, boys. What a solid leader, overachiever. I mean, that dude, he's one of the reasons your team won a Super Bowl that year. Yeah. You got centers that important.
It's always the case, right? I mean, I think about Frankie Winters back in the day.
Frankie Bag of Donuts.
Old Frankie Bag of Donuts there, The guy could really move bodies around there in the trenches.
Real quick, do you remember me and Timmy, I believe, were talking about Mike Sanders still? And he was one of those guys, and I see a theme that I hope that we all remember going into this draft, off season, is that there's the guys that flash with the RAS and all the flashy stuff and everything, but then there's just the guys that are good football players. And Mike Sanders still was one of those. And there's like maybe, I think, 10 to 15 other starters, rookies right now in the NFL, especially in the defense, that were just, they didn't have the greatest numbers, but they were just football players. They just came and they kind of exceeded what their 40 time was, or what the reps they did on the bench, or whatever their long jump, their high jump was. I think that this year, hopefully Goody is going to take a step back and see that especially in the first round, that it's not just about the RAS and what they could be. I want him to draft somebody that is already a great football player. Like you saw that. I think he knocked it out of the park with a guy like Edge Cooper, because Edge Cooper had that, he was kind of a freak of nature, but you watch him on tape and you're like, this dude is just good at football. Like, how that worked out.
And with Sanders still, he was the 6th ranked cornerback on our draft board last year, so we had a really high grade on him. But obviously, I'd want a player like that too, Ben. He's not leaving Washington. It ain't gonna happen. Like he's got 3 more years on that contract, and they probably love him just as much as we did, right? So, but yeah, that type of player, if that's what you're saying, Ben, I completely agree with you, man. Sanders still. The writing was all over the wall for him as a prospect, that's for sure. Since we were kind of talking about center, I want to back up just a second. Again, no centers in the top 100 according to PFF in this year's draft, okay? But we did find a few that maybe later in the draft that you go, I like these guys, right? Now, again, are we going to do this again? Are we going to get to the point where, well, we're just going to bring in a 4th-round pick and hope it hits at center and he'll be ready in 3 years and we miss that window, right? That's why I'm more as the season goes along, I'm more on board with someone moving the center that's already played on the line. But just a few names here to mention, and in no particular order, okay? But these are the guys that kind of have some center experience, or they are true centers coming out of college that kind of caught my attention that are outside of the top 100. The first one is Jonah Monheim. Let me see if I can find him here real quick. He's ranked 139, right? And you see the PFF grades 81, 75, 70, a slight decline the entire time, but he played center this year for the first time. You talk about versatility and a guy that Goody may like. I mean, in 2022, he played right tackle and right guard. And then in 2023, he played left tackle. And then in 2024, he played center. He's not my favorite prospect, but that's one to keep an eye on there with Jonah Monheim. Next, you got Jake Majors. Hopefully we do this in a reasonable order so we can find these guys without too much dead air. I should probably just top them in, to be honest with you. Jake Majors. Let me just do that.
Majors will be I think he was on that first page, wasn't he?
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, there he is, 162.
All right, so Jake Majors, PFF grades 63, 70, and 72. They're showing him as a true center out of Texas. He played center his entire college career, so he is a true center. That's a name to kind of keep an eye out for if you're going to try to draft one. Drew Kendall from Boston College. All right, yeah. Boston College. I could probably sort these now that I know we're looking at centers. Let me do this real quick. Let me just go center, and that'll straighten that up for us.
Get all 8 of them. Let's see.
Exactly. Drew Kendall. Here we go. Ranked 232. You go, whoa, Clayton. Whoa. Right. 60, 70, 78. Got better his entire college career, and he's a true center. Look at his true pass set, pass block grade this year. 76.2 with the Packers. Love pass blocking centers. 81.5 is another number for pass blocking grade. Run blocking grade, 75.9. It's almost at the top of the graph.
This is my guy.
He doesn't have one single bad game. Look at that. Right. Look at the grades by game. Not one.
Steady Eddie, man. Maybe Nebraska at the very end, but man, all year long, Jacob, you're right. It's just steady, right? Solid grade. So that's one that makes the short list for me. Next, you'll have Gus Hartwig. See if we can find old Gussie boy. Oh, Gussie Hartwig. Here we go. 281st. His PFF grade 71, 69, and 70. And you can see 2022 all center. In 2023, he played center mostly and kicked over to right tackle for 28 snaps, then came back to center in 2024. True pass set, pass block grade 76.8, pass block grade 82.1. Look at that game against Notre Dame, boys. 81.2 against that solid Notre Dame defense that's in the national championship. Went up against your Wisconsin Badgers on the road, 76.9.
Look at Ohio State. Wow.
That's another dude. So, again, this is my short list of centers. And then there was a guard that caught my eye as well. His name is Marcus Weir, but he's more of a right guard, right tackle. We'll leave that alone for right now. Those are the centers. I mean, we got
somebody to keep an eye on. That's why I like Marcus Weir too, because if we move, Big E, or we possibly move Nacho Libre, we're going to need some depth, and right. A guy that's kind of a swing guard, if that's a term, can play both sides. I think he's intriguing for sure. Jacksonville State, right?
Yeah, that's
Montana State. Yeah.
That's the problem, is the lower school, right, Tim? Like that's
Yeah.
what we worry about a little bit. But look at the grades, Jacob. He
Wow.
dominated.
That's
81,
crazy.
93 and 87. Yeah.
What do you think about what Joyce says here? She says, I'm assuming she, do you like drafting? Do like we did last year, basically drafting safeties 3 or 4 different times. I don't know if we draft 3 or 4 possible centers. I think possible centers is a good way of saying it. I'd say interior linemen. And obviously Goody has shown that he likes to do that when he has an area of need. There was a year they drafted the 3 wide receivers. I think they've done that multiple times where they drafted the D line pretty heavy. They drafted obviously the safety position like you talked about last year. I think that's what's going to happen this year. I would be shocked if he drafted less than 2 or 3 prospects that could fill into that either guard / center position.
Yeah, definitely. And again, what they love doing is drafting tackles and moving them to guard. Yeah. Right. That's what they love doing. And that's why we did an extensive deep dive on tackles. But again, that doesn't fix the center problem. Right. That's why as you compile all this information and you ask questions and get answers, right? Center, not a whole lot of centers in this draft, especially in the top 100. There's 0 according to PFF. Okay, so that means that market is very thin. What does that do? That will typically drive up the market for the free agent centers, right? So Drew Dowman may get closer to, like Fred was saying in the chat, $12 million per. If that's the case, I don't know if I feel comfortable paying that kind of money for him. That's why, as you troubleshoot this, you guys know the flow chart everybody uses to make jokes with, right? The flow chart. When you get through the flow chart, it's like Elgton Jenkins at center makes all the sense in the world to me. So, that probably, if you made me bet, will they draft and start a center? Will they sign a free agent center and he be the starter? Or will they move Elgton Jenkins or someone else who's already on the roster to center? My money will probably be on someone on the roster already playing center, is what it kind of feels like.
And if that's the approach, then what's wrong with taking a chance on one of these true centers that we just talked about? That's, maybe a project. If you've already got a plan to move somebody over, you can at least develop a rookie center for the long term,
Here's the only problem I find with it, Tim. It's a great question too. You've already got Jake Monk, right? So does Jake Monk just get cut now?
Jacob Monk.
You can only carry so many. You know what I'm saying? So many offensive linemen, and when it's a guy that's just a true center, that's tough. That's why the versatility comes into play. Because who's the true backup center on our roster right now? It's Monk, right? I mean, he played center in college, if I remember correctly. Is there another one? No, but who actually came in and played? It was Sean Ryan. So it's obvious that they don't like to carry too many true centers, which makes you think what Rob Domofsky said about the center of the future is already on the roster is what someone in the building told him. Now, they could have been BSing him, but that kind of feels like Jake Monk when you say it like that, either him or Elgton Jenkins. So the problem
is maybe once we hit camp, it's going to be Monk getting those reps right away. Yeah.
You guys remember he was a super really great team guy. He was getting the crowd all excited. Remember in the offseason? I mean, he was running up and down the sideline trying to get them all jazzed up. I mean, he seems like a great guy.
I want to say he was the guy too that was a 4-year captain. Is that what it was? 3 or 4-year captain?
Yep, he was.
Really rare in college.
At Duke, right?
Yeah, Duke. Yeah. Okay. And listen, you got to be fairly sharp to go to Duke too. Let's be honest, right? If you're going to actually get a degree and not just use it as a football vocational school, right? So
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man, for sure. I don't know what's going on in the chat. I've seen censorship, and I went, uh-oh. So I'm scared to look in there. Hopefully we're still up on YouTube. We are. We didn't do anything wrong, did we? I got something on my shirt. Does that logo offend anyone? And they took us down. I got to be careful. So there goes the algae again, guys. Sorry.
God, is this real? Josh Martin says, remember Jenkins has turned 31 this year? What?
Let's put his contract too. Let's have the tough conversation. Tim's probably gonna hate this, but let's have the tough conversation. No. You did this, Jacob. I'm blaming you. Let's go. Elgton Jenkins spot track. Is it spot track or SPO track? Somebody help me out. I've heard it both ways 1,000 times. How would you say it?
I say spot track, but
spot track. Tim, get your vote in there, sir. Get your voice heard.
SPO track. Just to be different.
Just to be different.
Just to be a dick.
Just to be like this guy, I think it's SPO track.
All right, here we go. This is Elgton Jenkins' contract, and he is 30 years old this year, okay? So he won't be 31. At least this is what his contract is saying. He won't be 31 until next year. Let me see if I can get this zoomed in a little bit more. I'm sorry, guys. That's what
So
happened.
Center of the future is definitely not Elgton Jenkins.
But that's the thing. Like, look at how long centers play. That's the other thing. You want to extend the offensive lineman's career. They usually go to center, right? Like Jeff Saturday was playing until he's 112. It felt like, right?
It's true.
It's Saturday.
If there is a position, I should say, right? So Elgton Jenkins, and to kind of go to that too, Tim, that if you don't have the center of the future in this year's draft, I think we would agree there's not one that like sticks out or three of them like, hey, we can get one of these three guys. Maybe that is the route you take, right? But he's 30 years old this year. He turns 31 next year. But look at the structure of this contract. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit to get it on the screen for you guys. Actually, I might be able to do this. Yeah, here we go. That's perfect because it's just one player. So notice the important numbers here are the cap hit is $17.6 million this year, okay? The dead cap is $9.6 million. So you got to eat a dead cap of $9.6 million, but you're going to free up, what would that be? Help me with the math there. Is that $8 million? Yeah, right? You free up $8 million if you cut him outright?
Yep.
Does that look right? I think that's right. Yeah. So if you cut him outright this year, you could free up $8 million. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We want Big E back. Next year, his number jumps to 24.8, and his cap penalty is only 4.8. So you can literally free up $20 million if you move on from him next year. And that's where you're getting that
$20 million.
That's a
Think
lot of
about
money.
that, man. Seriously. And that's against our cap already. Is he going to play at that number? Absolutely not. He's going to be at the top of the list for possible restructures next year. But this year, he is 4th on our list for restructures. I think he's going to get a restructured contract this year. And what that'll consist of is that base salary of $11.7 million. He's only got a roster bonus of $6 million, so it'll all be done out of base salary. You would ask him to take a pay cut, but guarantee more of that $11.7 million, right? You'll probably free up the number I've got attached to him. I could see them looking to potentially free up $5 million, somewhere between $3 to $6 million. I said 5 right in the middle of cap space with Elgton Jenkins' contract this year. So do I think he's going to get extended beyond 2026? Absolutely not. He may not even be on the roster in 2026. So Goody DiCaprio over there, boys, you know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's why if you want to keep him on the roster and continue to save cap by doing these restructures, Tim, and I'll get your take on this. You move him to center, you can extend his career a little bit playing center as opposed to guard. And, okay, when I say extend his career, you can get through that 2026 year and, like I said, do a restructure, give a little bit more guaranteed money. You're paying cash for cap, so it works out better for the team if you've got the cash flow. And if you guys haven't been over there to Titletown, let me tell you, Packers got some cash flow right there.
I think it's a fair point, too, like you said, about the age being kind of a little less of a serious factor when it comes to, spots on the O-line. You look around the league, you see a lot of veteran guys that are, top-tier talent still. And it's true. It kind of can extend the life of your career if you kick to center. We know Elgton is capable of playing there. That may be a quick little Band-Aid for us for the next couple of seasons. But I still think, the elephant in the room is we need a center. We need a real center. And, Creed Humphrey, man, the one that got away, that one still stings, But I totally agree. I think that, Big E being on the wrong side of 30 is a little less of a red flag considering where he plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, you got anything else to add to that before I'm going to move over to Kenny Clark real quick. I seen a question about him or a comment about him.
Yeah, I mean, just it'll kind of bleed into that conversation. It just, I hate saying it, but it seems like the Packers have just made a mistake of paying players top dollar as far as what we get after we give them that money. And I hate saying Elgton Jenkins is one of those, but to be completely honest, I think that when he first got paid, it was because he was that tackle guard prospect. And now we're talking about him as a guard center prospect. And you know what I mean? Like that doesn't usually happen if you're playing at a top tier level. And he got hurt in the game. And it's just, he's one of those guys where going into this year, I would have never thought anything of it. But when I look at the performance of these players matched with how much we're paying them per year, it just is not, it's me no like you that. All right.
Exactly.
I don't like it.
Me no like you that, Jan. I told Mandy last night, I'm like, we gotta break the office back out. It's time to make it 2 or 3 passes through every season again. It's
Jan Levison Gould, I presume.
no Google. Let's go to the chat before we talk Kenny Clark here real quick. Ron Sample, Matt Shore talked like they have big plans and confidence in Morgan and Lloyd this year. Talked about it with Schneiden. Bigger loss than we might have assumed. I'm telling you, man. And the people that roasted Jordan Morgan, that Jordan Morgan pick, it's obvious now more than ever. Goody's seen the lack of depth at offensive line, and that's what he was trying to fix, is to get a guy that can come in and compete for right guard and then play all over that offensive line from an interior standpoint or tackle and be able to fill in. It just so happens that's the dude who goes down and gets injured. Then Elgton Jenkins gets injured by the way, it was friendly fire, if I remember correctly. No, that was Josh Myers' friendly fire. Elgton Jenkins got injured by the dude spearing him with the crown of his helmet. Another ball, right? So funny how that works. I wonder if there was a fine for that one. We need to comb through and see if there was, because that was interesting that nobody even talked about the fact that dude put the crown of his helmet right into Elton's collarbone. But I think Ron's spot on here. I really do, man.
I agree. I think the Morgan being hurt was a little bit bigger of a hit than the Marshawn Lloyd. When you consider the depth we have in that running back room, we got to see a heavy dose of Emmanuel Wilson in his second year, which I was all about seeing. And I think hopefully nothing is long term as far as Marshawn Lloyd, because that dude, man, you look at his college tape, he just jumps off the tape at you. So hopefully we get to see him peppered in going into 2025.
Tim, would you want Lloyd over Chris Brooks?
Oof. At this point, no, because I like what I've seen from Brooks on tape too, and that was a pleasant surprise. But again, if you ask me today, I would say no. Ask me after OTAs, or ask me when we get in towards training camp and stuff. I might have a different tune, but either way, man, I feel really good about that running back room. We've got some beasts in the stable for sure.
Based off what I've seen, I would prefer Brooks over Lloyd at this moment, but I don't think Goody would. Goody's going, hey, get that new toy out there. Let's watch him run. And again, Matt LaFleur liked him. He referred to him as that. He said that little rocket in the backfield is what he said, right? Harry Cheese in the chat says, I really do think a smart center is still undervalued, especially since the rise of young quarterbacks. That's a great point. Seems to help with protections and letting the quarterback just play ball. I think there's a lot of truth to that, Harry. And then Chris N says Kenny Clark contract is dead weight around Goody's neck. Here is Kenny's contract right here, okay? And you guys probably see it a little bit better this time around, hopefully. So 2025 this year, $20.3 million cap hit, dead cap of 26.8. Okay, so nothing you can do. Obviously, he was going to be on the roster this year. Next year, however, $31.3 million. Okay, when I say next year, I'm talking about 2026. $31.3 million is the cap hit. Dead cap is $17 million flat. So you can free up. Help me with the number there. Is that $13 million you can free up just by cutting Kenny outright? Okay. Now, does that mean they'll do that? I'm not saying that. I will say this though. How old is he that year? Let's see. 31. Yeah. I'll say this. I think they'll be very, very aggressive with Kenny and trying to get a restructure. I'm talking about very team-friendly restructure, like Aaron Jones team-friendly type restructure, right? That's probably the route they'll go there. And then the following year, $27.1 million is a cap hit, only 7.1. So you could free up $20 million in 2027 moving on from him. So there's a decent chance this is Kenny's last year in Green Bay. But next year, I could also see him taking a lot less money with a little more guaranteed money. Not like your traditional restructure where it's great for both sides. It would have to be better for the Packers. So Goody did kind of set this up to go, hey, in 2026, we can move on if we need to. That's why you see that potential out right here that's listed. They try to kind of earmark, okay, here's the years where you can start to get out of the contract. So anything you guys want to add to that? Because I agree with what Chris said. It is some dead weight. There's no doubt about that, man.
Kenny's probably at the top of my list of guys that have gotten paid that just aren't performing. I mean, his decline is, I don't know. I hate to say decline, but I don't think he ever really we wanted him to be considered a top 3 D lineman at some point in his career, but he just wasn't. I mean, you watched, even as much as I hate the Chiefs, you watch like Chris Jones. He's a difference maker. When he's on the field, you have to watch where he is, which is crazy for being an interior D lineman. At one point, they had him on the D end. At some point, they had him. I saw him almost like in a, what do you call that? Like a spy touch. Like they were. It was just insane. They had to account for every single play.
How many times they tried to chip him with a receiver? The Texans had no answer at all.
Right. And that's the thing, is if Kenny he's getting paid like one of those guys, but he does nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort.
This is the perfect example of what we say. You're willing to overpay for great. You don't overpay for good. Kenny was good at his best. There was one year, and I credit Ryan for bringing this to my attention on his podcast. I was just right with the crowd, wasn't even looking it up. Kenny's great. No, Kenny's good. Kenny's awesome. And he's like, he had one good year. He had one year where it's like he's top 10, right? Top 10 defensive tackle. But you paid him like he's top 3 his whole career once you started to give the contract extension out. So this is the perfect example of you overpaid for good as opposed to great. Now, again, I don't want to come across like this egotistical guy who thinks he knows more than Brian Gutekunst. Please don't take it that way. We're just going off the information we got. Obviously, Goody's seen something that he thought that. Now, back to the touch spy, Jacob. When you think of your most expensive defensive lineman, right, cap hit-wise over the last however many years it's been, and you think of, okay, we're just going to use him in a touch spy, that seems like a big waste. But you got to look at it from the offense's perspective. Why are they choosing to use him as a touch spy? Is because they're allocating a double team to him and a double team to Gary. So I think the way Hafley approached it, I think it's very intelligent. It's why the run defense got better this year, is Coach Hafley said, you know what? If they're going to slide the protection and double Kenny, let's just let him play a little spy, play it safe, play the run a little bit more, and make sure the quarterback doesn't get out of the pocket. And from a casual fan's perspective, like I've been for so long, you watch the tape and go, Kenny ain't doing anything. Kenny ain't doing anything. Well, it's true. He wasn't, off the charts this year. He had a bad year. There's no doubt about it. But the fact that he's occupying that double team, you're going +1 in the hat count game, and you're keeping the quarterback from scrambling and kind of controlling the run a little bit more, which we got way better at playing run defense. I think that was how Hafley seen that. What else are you going to do? If they're going to allocate a double team and you just tell him to pin his ears back, right? They take him completely out of the game, and now he's fighting, he's rushing to do everything he can to get upfield through a double team, which he most likely will not win that battle, and you're leaving a huge hole there for the running back. I think Hafley played it perfect. I really do. I don't know if that makes sense, but you guys got to take on that.
Go ahead, Rusty Hurts.
We need to change the Rusty Cheeks, by the way. I think Rusty Cheeks.
Rusty Cheeks.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know, man. It just, I've lost kind of faith in Kenny, and I don't know what to do with the D line, because again, I'll go back to Hafley coming in clearly made a difference. I mean, it's night and day with so many categories, but for whatever reason, we just couldn't get that offensive line or the defensive line figured out and have them be effective. And I'll just go back again. Like, if we're paying the guy, like, that's major money. The 2 guys that we're paying major money to on defense had little to no impact whatsoever on the season. Jair and Kenny, you know what I mean? And you could argue Rashawn, obviously he was a performer and he did his job. Right. I knew Dillian. Well, yeah, but we've been saying that every year. We say something's going to be this. Why can't Clay? Didn't we do this year? We did it last year. Kenny looks real slim down. He could rush the passer.
Coach Ogabasi should be the new D-line coach.
You think so?
I'm just going to put that out there right now. Promote that guy.
I'll say this. What Coach Lynn is saying, it's true. A new D-line coach might unlike Kenny, but like what Jacob's saying, we said this with Joe Barry, when Joe Barry came in, right? It's like, okay, because Kenny had his best year under Mike Pettin. You move on, Joe Barry gets in here, and all of a sudden Kenny sucks at football, right? And then what did we say last year? This is what Jacob's point is. Last year it was, we're finally going to a true one-gap defense. Man, Kenny's going to dominate. We did our predictions. I finally erased them because I got tired of looking at them because they were absolute trash. But anyway, he guys, we were talking about, he's liable to crack 10 sacks this year. He had 1. His pressure rate was 6.6%, right? And again, you got to look at the tape. What was he being asked to do? A lot of touch spine. It was going on. So, again, Coach Lynn, I think he makes a great point, but at the same time, it's like, how many times are we gonna say that? You know, this is what, guys. We just talked about it. What is he? 30? How old is he now?
It's gonna be 31.
He's 31 he's 30 this year. He'll be he's going to turn 31 next year. It's over. Like we cannot realistically expect him to improve at this point, right?
What do you think?
Freaks do, but
yeah, sorry. What do .com says? So, what about Lucas Van Ness? He can't even get on the field over Cox. That pick is looking rough, unfortunately. Again, now hold on. Now I will not tolerate any banter of the rise of Cox. All right.
Here's the thing: Lucas Van Ness over 11% pressure rate this year.
I thought he turned it on. It's weird though that we do.
People
not
know
use him.
Hey. TJ Watt was around 10% this year. Well, he was hurt. Okay, let's make excuses for him and just ignore the fact that Lucas Van Ness, I think, was third or fourth in pressure percentage. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No, I mean that's
sick.
That's one play draft pick where I liked it at the time, and then I got a little bit sour on it. And now I think it's just maybe him finding his niche, but it is an interesting scenario because we don't give him, he's not Max Crosby. He's not going out there and playing 99% of all snaps. He's getting like 40, 50 tops percent of the snaps being played. And I know that's a philosophy that kind of that defense of Hafley, he wants those guys rotating and being fresh. I understand that. But at the same time, you know, I think you have to look at what he's done when he's on the field, and I'm not ready to give up on him yet. That's for sure. Especially if we get another if we can get another decent DN / edge, whatever you want to call him now, a really solid guy between Kingsley, Rashawn, Van Ness, my boy Cox. And if we get another stud that's an up and comer, I mean, that in theory on paper, that should be a good, I think it goes back again to the interior defensive line just wasn't performing when we had guys coming off the edge or playing really good DN play. It seemed like we would get just gut punched. You know what I mean? You remember how many times it looked like we had a run stopped for like a 3-yard loss, and they just run right up the middle, and they just scurry around for a 14-yard play, and it's like, man. And a lot of that was Kenny not being able to get off blocks and not making any good in tackles, and it is what it is.
So here is your quarterback pressure percentage for the Packers. Okay, now you got to throw out the Keyshawn Nixon, Xavier McKinney, Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker. Throw those out of the window because obviously those are simulated pressure. They're designed to get pressure. Your pressure rate's going to be through the roof with those guys. Like I don't think anybody's sitting here thinking line Keyshawn Nixon up at defensive end. You know what I'm saying? So we'll just move on from that. But I will say here's where it starts. Okay, and of course our logo is covering it up perfect. Tim, can you drop that logo in the upper right down for me if you don't care, buddy? I'd really appreciate that. That'll probably give us the best view. And we're coming down the stretch here. We're about to wrap up. I just wanted to point out the pressure percentage. So Brenton Cox Jr. led the team at 13.7% pressure rate, okay? He only played 35.9% of the snaps. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, let's address the first question. The viewer said something about he can't even beat Brenton Cox Jr., right? He actually had more snaps. He had 39.3% of the snaps, and Brenton Cox Jr. had 35.9%. I've seen people dogging Gary. He doesn't need to come off the field if he's a real superstar. You can't blame Gary for the fact that the coaches love this heavy rotation. We talked about it. The rotation happened more this year than it has in the past. I want to say it was like a 60% snap count for the starters in the past. This year, you could see it dropped a little bit here with 58.4% of the snaps with Rashawn Gary. So, pressure percentage, 13.7% for Brenton Cox Jr. You had 13.4% for Rashawn Gary. Forget Javon Bullard. He's a safety. Next is Lucas Van Ness at 11.2%. Okay. The one that LVN catches a lot of flack for the first round pick that he's just been a bust, right? Why is no one talking about Devontae Wyatt at 9.7%? You know what I'm saying? LVN has been significantly better at applying pressure on the quarterback than Devontae Wyatt on a per snap basis, right? And again, LVN played 39.3% of the snaps, Devontae Wyatt 40.7% of the snaps. So that's apples to apples there, right? It really is. Now, with Devontae Wyatt, well, he's a run defender too. He sucks at run defense. Like, seriously, I don't want to say he sucks. It's not his strength. So I think LVN, and keep in mind, he got more snaps this year than he did last year. They're starting to work him in. He'll be the true edge starter opposite of Rashawn Gary next year. They're getting a new defensive line coach in unless they go the route that Tim's talking about with Ogabasi just promoting him. There's a chance they're bringing in a defensive line coach from the Jets, it sounds like. So they're trying to do something to improve that. I just wanted to point that out that when you look at these players and you go, all right, here's who we put blame on, LVN's not the one for me. He's just not.
Right. What I think is more telling than anything is so you got your pressure percentage of Devontae Wyatt at 9.7, TJ Slayton's at 8.8. And if you look down about 3 or 4 spots, you find Mr. Kenny Clark at 6.8%. I mean, that is unreal. Carl Brooks is just behind him at 6.4. And look at Kenny Clark. He's playing 62% of the snaps. He's one of the highest consistent guys on defense, for sure, on the defensive line. And the guy's bringing in a 6.8%. I mean, he's getting paid top dollar. We got TJ Slayton and Devontae Wyatt that are vastly outperforming him. It's just that can't be. That cannot happen.
Right. And with the whole Kenny thing and TJ Slayton, this is what I was saying. If you can get TJ Slayton for $3 million or less per year, bring that big. I about said a bad word. That big bastard. Bring that big bastard back.
You just said it anyways.
Where I'm from, that's a compliment. We say it, hog molly, all that stuff. Like, give me that dude back.
Bastard.
Yeah, bring him back in there. We need it. 8.8.
On these parts again, you old bastard.
That's a sound drop right there. That's definitely a drop. So yeah, and he was obviously he's kind of known for his run defense, right? Which he did good. That's the other thing. We're just talking about pressure percentage. What if we go to run stops? Okay, so let's go to stops here. Look who you got at the top here. Let's focus on defensive line. Rashawn Gary, 39 run stops. Okay, I think that's stops, just stops in general. 39. Who's next? Kenny Clark at 28, right? But he played 62% of the snaps. So that's important. TJ Slayton only had 4 less stops than Kenny Clark, and he only played 38.4% of the snaps. So if there was a metric for stops percentage, he would darn near be, he would be doubled Kenny Clark.
Here's the guy.
Same thing with Wyatt. Wyatt's at 40%, has 20. You know what I mean? If he played the same amount, that's Devontae Wyatt, Mr. Pass Rusher Specialist, is outperforming Kenny Clark in the run. I mean, come on.
So it sounds like TJ and Devontae need more snaps.
Bingo. But the problem is Kenny's getting paid all that money, Tim. That's the issue we got, man. You know?
Yeah, well, that sounds like something for the front office guys to figure out.
Not us, right, Tim?
Yeah, what the hell they did. You know, I mean, think about it. Put yourself on that coaching staff. Like, I could give a rat's ass what you're paying these guys. I'm trying to get the best out of what I have to work with. And if that means the guy getting more money, that's, the aging veteran and, whatever the narrative is, I'm looking at some of my younger guys that maybe need some more reps and trying to pepper them in.
Yep. So if we go, let's look at LVN's sacks real quick. You want to? Let's just take a quick gander at this. If we can get it on the screen large enough. Here we go. So you see him wide 9 out here, right? Wide 9. I see someone asked, can he play 3-tech? He probably could, but I'm telling you, man, they want him to set that edge. They want him to be that dude to set the edge on the outside. He's just a monster, right? 3-tech. Here's the way I see it in a 4-3. 3-tech needs to be 280 plus. It really needs to be 290 and very agile, right? Which they're not falling off trees. But think of Carl Brooks, right? Think of Devontae Wyatt. Those are your true 3-techs, which on this play here in particular against the Titans, you see Carl Brooks playing what we would call a 2-eye, right, which is close to a 1-tech. So let's roll the tape, see if they shift. He's actually playing just a 2. Look at LVN on the outside. Relentless, baby. Bang. And again, how does that happen? Watch Rashawn Gary off the left. Rashawn Gary going to flush him, right? There's the pressure from Rashawn Gary. Levis tries to escape. LVN. This is what I like. As LVN's about to murder this quarterback, look at the guy who's supposed to be blocking him. Where did he go? There's one. Let's go to San Francisco here, okay? And this is LVN with the sack. In zone cam. Where's he at on this play? Now you see him. He's lined up. I guess that's Kittle on that side, right? So this is what you would call – some would call it a wide 9. I would call this more of a – like if you go 0, 2, 4, call it a 6 or a 6-eye, right? Because you're right over the tight end. And let's watch him take care of business here. Let's see what happens. Untouched. They tried to pull a guard over, right, or a tackle from the opposite side to block. Relentless strip sack.
I think it's double teamed.
Yeah, triple team. This is the best part, Jacob. Look at this, Tim. You remember this? Watch our boy Christian McCaffrey try to take care of LVN. I wish it was the other camera. Look at Christian McCaffrey. Fake handoff, and he's going to try to block LVN. Let's go.
Is that use check that initially is pulling?
It may have been. He might have been lined up like in a Y. Yeah, it looks like a 44, doesn't it? Yeah. But watch. Just key in on Christian McCaffrey, right? But keep your peripheral on LVN. Do not take your eye off of Christian McCaffrey on this play. LVN throws his ass out of the club. Watch this.
Dude.
But that's the look you're looking for. I want that autographed by Christian McCaffrey. You know what I'm saying? Or autographed by LVN would be awesome. So, again, this talk like LVN is just a horrible football player is not true. It's not true. Let's move on to the final one here. This is against Miami. And this was a sack of Tua. And then we'll wrap this thing up. So here he is again, wide 9 look, right, over the left tackle on the left tackle side. Great job contained. You know how easy it would be to try to fight up the field and then Tua escapes right here?
Yep.
Like he thinks he's got this huge lane right here, right? Great job.
That's what we talk about, getting off a block too. You know, that's kind of something that we gloss over a lot of times. Once you engage with that lineman, are you able to get off? And that's a great example of LVN getting off a block and making a play.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy too is if you look at that lineup, you know what's missing there? Edger and Cooper. If you watch a lot of the early year highlights, there's no Cooper on the field, which makes you think, like, what happens if that dude in this defense, if we even improve slightly, even if that's the bare minimum, if we just slightly improve in certain areas, I still cannot wait for that guy to be on the field for 90+% of the snaps, because he's a straight up difference maker.
Right. So if you were to say LVM was going to play 90% of the snaps, you would triple his numbers is what you would do, right? That's basically what because he's, 30, probably a little less than triple. So if he finished with 3 sacks and he had a pressure percentage of 11.3%, which is third best on the team amongst the defensive linemen, he would have finished the season, 8 sacks? If LVN had 8 sacks this year, the view on him would be totally different, right? Fans would be like, hey, man, we got, you can't help the fact that he played less snaps. That's how they rotate. That's how they do that in Green Bay, right? They want to keep those fresh legs. So kind of is what it is. I'm not saying LVN is a top 10 edge defender. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying if you took every defensive lineman in the league, right, and you said, okay, on the field at all times, you've typically got 4 defensive linemen because people were in nickel most of the time. So you've got 2 defensive tackles and 2 defensive ends, and you looked at, or 2 edge defenders. If you looked at the numbers there, he finished 62nd, I believe is where he finished, which means out of 120 that you would consider starting caliber, he's in the top half, essentially. So I think next year, I'm not going to be surprised if we look up next year and LVN's pressure percentage is over 10% again, which is kind of that line where you go, that's an effective pass rusher. If he finishes 13, 14% next year, you're going to see him with 7 or 8 sacks, and he's going to be a consistent contributor to this defense. I believe that, man. So let's finish up in the chat real quick. Coach Lynn, Lloyd is not as smooth as Gibbs, but he can have an effect in our run game next year if we use him right. I know Matt LaFleur loved Lloyd. There's no doubt. Fred McFarley, what do you have written on that whiteboard, Rusty? Is that your schedule over at the Oval Office, or Rusty?
No, he's sketching out, ass tattoo designs, basically. He recently lost a bet, so.
That's unfortunately true.
Oh, man. I love it, man. Hey, listen, the grease boards, people make fun of me all the time for it. You guys remember when I started doing the podcast, this was all one big grease board? I need it. That's what these are. I've replaced them with like 3 different mini grease boards. Right? Gotta have it, man. Gotta have it. And then Coach Lynn says Green Bay did not peak at the right time. We looked like contenders at times this year. That's a great point. You know what that sounds like, Coach? And people hate to hear it. That sounds like the youngest team in the league. What that sounds like. So add some veteran leadership this offseason. That doesn't mean you waste money, but you got to add some veterans.
Did y'all see there was a graphic, I can't remember who it was, maybe Fox Sports or somebody put it out, but it simply stated the youngest teams every year since like the maybe early 2000s. And every single one of them was losing record, horrible record, losing record. And then it was the Packers in 2023 and 2024, both winning records. And like you cannot deny that. There is obviously, it's easy to say we're the youngest team. That's why this and this didn't go right. It's an actual legitimate kind of asterisk that needs to go by this. And going in, I love, honestly, I like being one of the younger teams, if not the youngest team. It's a double-edged sword though. And you have to understand that there are going to be some disadvantages for that. And we saw it very clearly this year in certain areas. So that should give us hope. Maturing.
As the youngest team in the league, you want to show you can compete. And then once you get to the point where you're competing, now put the pieces in place, right? That's kind of where we're at. I hope they do that. I hope they do that this year. I think it's going to be great. And what Jacob's talking about, I think it was over the last 20 years, it was at least the last 15 years, right?
Yeah.
We're the only team in NFL history to have the youngest roster and have a winning record, and we've done it twice now. So there you go. Tim, you got any parting thoughts, man? We'll get way over. We'll get out of here real quick.
Yeah, Edrin Cooper's a future Hall of Famer.
I believe
that's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's perfect. Fred McFarley says Cooper got a second-team All-Pro vote, playing basically 3/5 of the year, if that, maybe 2/5 of the year.
Yeah,
that's
he's
crazy.
Dog. Absolute dog. My guy right there. He's a madman.
And that's the great example because it was disheartening at camp last year to see Cooper just standing on the sidelines talking to Quay and not being able to be out there. And he missed so much time early in that rookie season. And then to see him come on late and just look like a dude who's been playing in the NFL for 10 years is just insane to me. So there is no ceiling whatsoever with Edrin Cooper. It's just how high is this guy going to go?
Yeah. Donovan Schilling, he really should be rookie defensive player of the year. We'll see, man. That would be awesome if he won that, right? So, all right, that's it, guys. We're out. Went over a little bit. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit that like button for us before you leave. We will we'll be back tonight, I believe. As of right now, I'll be back tonight. I got to double check. But the only night we're going to take off is Monday night so we can watch the national championship. So
watch them Irish take care of business.
That's right. Fred McFarley says, thanks, Clayton, Tim, and Rusty. Enjoy the games today. There you go. All right. Appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful day. We will see you tonight, most likely. If not, just keep your eye peeled here on the channel. You'll see. I'll try to schedule it as soon as we make a decision. Hit that like button like Donovan says. Don't be a fan. All right. Shave your top lip and hit the like button. We're out of here. See you.
And we go. Bye, guys.